Episode 1, Silver Lining.
Or Ice Palace for one. Ice Palace for one.
Or long forgotten gods.
Or two sons?
Nice, I like it. That's funny. Welcome, mortals, fae, and the alchemically unhinged to Between Pages and Friends, a book club style podcast and your official portal into Quicksilver, book 1 of the Fae and Alchemy series by Callie Hart. This time around, it's the boys behind the books, Jon and Kyle, their wives' greatest achievements, their own biggest fans, and possibly the only two men emotionally prepared for what's coming, probably, maybe, TBD, who will be leading their counterparts, Con and Lauren, as first-time readers. So buckle up, y'all.
Buckle up.
I'm Jon.
I'm scared.
I'm Kyle.
And I'm Lauren. This is our very first episode of this series, and Con and I are thrilled to dive into another big romantasy, now with our husbands taking the lead. If you're new here, hi! We have a short intro episode about who we are and what you can expect from our episodes that you can check out if you haven't already. As a quick recap on the spoiler situation, the boys have read Quicksilver already. However, since Con and I are reading it for the first time, our episodes will only cover the designated chapters section each week. So this episode, if you've only read up to chapter 8, sames! Have no fear of spoilers beyond that point and have fun reading and theorizing along with us.
And while we're at it, let's throw some mild content warnings your way. This book is a bit on the spicy side, and as we're already unhinged and only slightly on schedule with our medication, things might be getting a little crazy. As this book has adult themes, so will our conversation, so please ask your parents if you can listen to this episode and post their response in the comments. Thanks. Only some little baby trigger warnings for this episode for things like ruffians, thugs, and men with pointy teeth. Stop no more, you'll just upset me.
Yes,
love you
that
so
was
much. I love you so much.
Oh my god.
If you've been with us from the start, thank you so much for joining us for episodes for over a year now. That is crazy. If we've been a slow burn for you, but you're ready to commit to the bit, you can join our Patreon. $5 a month will enter you into our Book Bestie tier. This gets you access to our amazing Discord community, monthly book chats, live events, and literally hundreds of bookish friends to chat with. $10 a month will make you a Found Family member, where you will get all of that, plus early access to ad-free episodes, merch discounts, voting privileges, and more.
After you've joined there, you should go buy a ticket for Enchanticon. The four of us will be attending as event influencers and hosts for the Throne of Glass Fandom Foundations session at this year's Enchanticon, August 15th through 17th. Enchanticon is a brand new, expanded fantasy convention for fantasy nerds of all kinds, from Mischief Management, the same amazing event company that created LeakyCon and RomanceCon. So, you know it's going to be a hoot and hollering good time, y'all. We would love to meet you there. We would love to meet you there.
We would love to meet you there.
We would love to meet you there. Use our code FRIENDS15 for 15% off your tickets at enchanticon.com.
And lastly, the best way to support this podcast for a discounted price of nothing is to write a review on Apple Podcasts or Audible. It only takes a minute and it helps us reach...
Say it.
It only takes a minute, but it helps us reach more little freaks like you who are into our nasty vibe. Sure.
Perfect.
I guess that's what it was. Here's a recent 5-star review on Audible from our new bestie, Megan Kramer, titled, My Go-To Bookish Crew. I started following you after discovering Jon's Team Raysand on TikTok and began listening to the podcast halfway through Kingdom of Ash. I've been reading Fourth Wing with you and have loved every minute of it. I don't have many friends who read fantasy, so I'm incredibly grateful to have your podcast to turn to. Your episodes truly make my day and help me process all the emotions these books bring up. This podcast deserves all the love, and I can't wait to see what you guys read next. Whatever it is, count me in. I'll be turning the pages with you all the way from South Africa.
Whoa.
Thank you, Megan.
Whoa.
Megan!
That's so
Hi.
cool, Megan.
Megan, it's Quicksilver.
It's here, it's happening now.
You gotta catch up. We're doing it now.
And welcome to Con's Declassified Fantasy Pronunciation Guide. This is the part of the show where we highlight all the new names and places mentioned in this chapter section. I'm referencing the audiobook narrated by Stella Bloom and Anthony Palmini, as well as the written pronunciation guide in the front of the book. Both of these things have me in pronunciation consistency heaven this week, so let's get into it. First up, in places, we have Zilvarin, aka the Silver City, aka the Great and Shining Banner of the North. This is where our story begins. In this section, we see the Third Ward, where residents are permanently quarantined in unlivable conditions, and the Hub. This is home of Zilvarin's well-heeled elites. Then we have the Mirage. This is the tavern that Cerys and Hayden live above. The House of Kala, aka Kala's. Evelia, the Fey land where Cerys wakes up toward the end of our chapter section, specifically within the Winter Palace. Other places mentioned here are Kalish, Gilthry, Sanazroth, Dianthus, Lark Street, and Hayland. For characters, we have Cerys Fane, our 24-year-old FMC, also known as Lissa Fossick. This is the name she gives to the guard in Chapter 1, and I have to call that out because when Everlane is asking for her name, she asks if it's Marika or Angelica, and then admits she's been calling her Liss for the last 10 days. So that's kind of funny after she
That is funny. I didn't catch
told
that.
somebody her name was Lissa. Then we have Hayden Fane. This is Cerys's 20-year-old brother. Queen Madra, also known as the Immortal Queen, the Undying Queen, the Bitch Queen, the Eternal Virgin, the Undying Herald of the Northern Banner. She got a lot of names. Her fanatic followers are called Believers. Then Carrion Swift, the most notorious gambler, cheat, and smuggler in the entire city. Gracia is Carrion's gray-haired, wicked-tempered grandmother. Then we meet Death / the Living Curse / Bane of Gilthry, the Black Knight, Kingfisher, baby.
That's his last name?
Yeah, his name is Kingfisher Baby.
Oh, I missed that.
It's his official title, his government name, if you will. Baby with 3 Ys, as I've typed it out.
All caps.
All caps. But for the rest of our characters, we have Everlane, also called Lane, also called Lady Everlane Debara. She is the daughter of Belicon Debara, king of the Evelian Fae. Elroy is the glassmaker. Bryn is the keeper of Kalas. General Renfus, Lauren's new book boyfriend. Malway is the Oracle. Rusarius is the Winter Palace librarian. Captain Heron, R.I.P. And other characters mentioned are Jairus Wade, Rajana Breen, Vorath Shaw, Master Eskin, and Orias. In world building, we have Belia and Min, the 2 twin sons of Zilvarin. More on that in a moment. The Reckoning, when the suns are closest. Even Light, a citywide festival of some kind. Om Namshakrai, the last dragon and a legend among the Evelian people. Solus, the sword Cerys retrieves from the Hall of Mirrors, and Nimrel, Kingfisher's Alchemerian sword. For gods, you know my little Gods Watch heart was happy in this first chapter section. We have the Corcoran, assuming this is the collective name for the gods worshipped in Evelia, and those gods are listed as follows. Styx, the god of shadows. Curin, god of secrets. Nichenai, goddess of masks. Balius, god of dawn and new beginnings. Balmithin, 2 counted as 1 god, twin sisters, goddesses of the sky. Bal is the goddess of the sun. Mithin is the goddess of the moon, aka Belia and Min, the names of the 2 sons of Zilvarin. And lastly, Zareth, god of chaos and change. And now, here he is, royal reader of the recaps, champion of the chapters, presenter of the plot points, love of my life, Jon.
Wow, what an intro. Thank you so much. Well, let's just dive right in to our chapter recaps. We meet Cerys Fane, a young woman with some renown in the city of Zilvarin, currently being detained by a guardian, one of Queen Madra's royal guard. We find out that she is from the Third Ward, where apparently no one can escape from because, you know, most people from the Third Ward just simply die. It's the diseased and downtrodden ward. Cerys notices a plague bag on the guardian, which means that he's a believer, quote-unquote. Apparently, the queen has quite a following. She feigns disease and sickliness, which makes him remove the gauntlet he was touching her with and drop it to the sand. Well, being an invaluable hunk of metal, she takes the opportunity to snatch it up and bolt. She makes it to one of the ward walls and starts to climb. They have some chatter, whatever, as like she's going up. The guard's like trying to get her to come down. She eventually makes her way up to the very top. As she gets up there, something weird happens with the gauntlet and the sand, particles rising up, and her reaction is kind of telling us that this is something that's happened before. She also hears a voices. She slams her hand down on the gauntlet and it stops, and then she's gone. We meet Elroy, who is a glassmaker who has like a furnace. He's got like a forge. He's a glassmaker, but he also, we learn, that used to make weapons for rebels against Queen Madra. He chastises her for bringing the gauntlet to him, and we also get a little insight here about how bad it is in the third and like how people survive. We also get a little history about Elroy. He was in love with her mother, used to be kind of a badass, and now he's just kind of old and washed up. We also learned that Cerys is a metallurgist of sorts, can affect metal, sometimes summon things to her, and that Hayden is her brother. She heads to the tavern to look for Hayden, and she finds him like outside of Kalla's. Not that it matters. She finds him outside of a tavern. He's kind of beat up, whatever. She heads in to confront one Carrion Swift, and they have a history. How delightful. Carrion has heard about the gauntlet being stolen. Hayden's not really supposed to be in there, so she gives Hayden her pack with the gauntlet and just tells him to wait outside. Carrion, in the meantime, tries to convince her to get the gauntlet out of the ward. It's only going to bring trouble for them with a bunch of guardians being around. She ends up going back outside to find Hayden, and he is gone. So she starts to run through the streets to where she thinks he is, passing some like familiar shops and like trade spots as it kind of describes the area around her. She goes through. She hears a far-off scream and bolts that way. Then she runs into some guardians who give chase, and she comes upon more of them in front of the Mirage. At least 30, all swords out. Hayden looks like he's about to run when Cerys cries out and tells the captain that has him there that it's her bag and that she took it. They go back and forth as the captain orders to restrain her, and 3 guardians start to like saunter her way. She kills one, takes the hand of another, and ramps up her skills to kill the third. And now she has the captain's attention for sure. As they close in around her, she yells at Hayden to run and tell Elroy like what's happened. She ultimately gets captured and she gets thrown in a cell. Captain Heron comes to get her to take her to meet the queen. We find out also that Cerys has been stealing the hub's water her entire life, which is like a huge deal, you know, being the sand city, heat, dry, water's a big deal. He leads her to a path through some doors to an area like a hall, the Hall of Mirrors. She notices one area that has a raised platform, and her like gaze, she's like really drawn to it. Madra comes out of the shadows and demands answers. She thinks the Fae have come for her at last, sending Cerys. But Fae aren't real, or are they? And then she says she's going to kill everyone in the third ward. Madra leaves, instructing Heron to make Cerys sing, basically torture her. He stabs her through the gut, and he twists it, then takes a dagger, stabs her in the shoulder. Then he takes out a third, and goes to stab her, but it stops short. He tries to like use both hands to try and push it, but she starts to feel something inside her let go, and the dagger liquefies in his hands to silver, and then the liquid starts to like roll toward him and up his leg. She wants to like try and finish him off. She can't take the sword out of herself. So she goes to the platform where she sees the sword. She thought it was a lever before it's a sword. She wrenches it free of its hold. She gives him a slice down his chest, and as he screams at her to put it back, she starts to sink into the now giant pool of silver. Blackness sweeps over as quote-unquote death emerges from said silver pool. He like has a sword raised, about to cut Cerys down when he sees the sword in her hand, which stops him short. She's like barely hanging on, vision fading, as Heron mumbles some nonsense to Death and finally dies. Then Death puts a necklace on her, picks her up, and walks her into and down into the pool of silver. Cerys wakes up in a super fancy bed. Having gone through some pain in the darkness, she's greeted by a fey female named Everlane, who talked to her and sang to her while she was being healed and mended. She learns that she is in the Fey realm of Ivelia, specifically the Winter Palace, and that Fey are very much real and not quite true to the horrific stories that they were told as kids. Then another Fey bursts into the room, Renfis, big soldier type guy who needs to get the chain that quote-unquote Death gave her because he is quote-unquote struggling without it. She hands it over and he heads out. Everlane draws a bath because she's to meet her father, who we learn is the king of the Ivalian Fae. Everlane gets Cerys presentable, and they head to the king. They head down the halls as Cerys gapes at all of like her surroundings, like fancy palace, all the stuff. They walk by some statues, and Everlane bows to them. They are statues of the gods. Everlane kind of goes through and explains like each one. They continue on as they pass a bunch of different looking fae as well, like throughout the halls. They finally make it to the Grand Hall and approach the king. He greets them and lets Ceres know that she'll be here a while to complete a task. She doesn't know what that is yet. He also tells her that her brother is already dead since, he heard what Madra decreed basically about like killing all those people. So he's like, she's whatever. I don't even know. she's dead. I heard her say she was going to do it and she's all about death. So whatever. All right. That's how he sounds. So she finds out that her task is to awaken the Quicksilver and reopen the pathways between worlds. And then he shoo-shoos them away. Then they bring in, quote-unquote, death. Not so quietly as the people begin to grow excitable about whoever this is. Like, he's back. They begin, they're repeating some nicknames, but eventually they land on the name Kingfisher. Apparently he was exiled 100 years ago, something about a place called Gilthry. Everlane pleads with the old lady on the dais, and she eventually walks forward claiming a prophecy and asking to hold the sword. So Belicon right now is holding the sword. I should have explained that earlier. He's holding the sword that Ceres grabbed on the pedestal. Anyway, so Malwe goes into kind of a trance and ultimately tells Belicon to return the pendant to Kingfisher or the House of Dabara will fall. Rymphus then steps forward, pleading that Kingfisher should return to the front to finish what he started. The king agrees that Kingfisher can stay a week to help Ceres get started with the whole Quicksilver thing, and then Rymphus can take him to the front. He also hands over the pendant and dismisses them. Everlane and Ceres follow Rymphus and Kingfisher out. They have a little argument, but eventually head back to their rooms. Ceres has a reality check about night and snow, so apparently in Zilvarin there's the two suns, I assume. So there's always day. So as night has fallen, it's dark outside, she kind of gets that reality check, which is kind of funny. They head to the library to get started on research or whatever it is they need to do to get started. We meet Rosarius, the librarian, a sweet old man. Also, apparently, Ceres is an alchemist that we learn, and Solus is the name of the sword that she pulled out of the pedestal. She also makes fun of Fisher's sword a bit here. They have a funny back and forth. They give Ceres a history book, but she's more interested in learning whatever that she needs to for the Quicksilver, but they think it's important that she kind of learn their history and their world. Then Fisher tells her that there's a good chance Madra didn't actually go off and kill everyone, that Hayden is very possibly still alive. Fisher finishes with 2 questions here to Ceres. Has she channeled Metal's energy before? And has she worked in a forge? Yes, to both, baby. And that's the end of our chapter section.
Well, thanks. Let's dive right in.
Woo! Okay. I don't know. We're waiting to do it as a group. I don't know what's happening. It's an audio thing too, so I was trying to make a noise. Okay. So before chapter 1 even starts, there's a pretty cool map and there's a little epigraph thing too. So I had some notes about that. I was super confused looking at this map because the first couple of chapters were in Zilvarin and that's not even on this map. So I was like, what the heck is happening? Did they give me the wrong thing? I don't know. But as soon as we got to Velia, I was ran back to the map so I could check out all the things. So
Pre-chat map?
Pre-chat map? Pre-book map. And then we get this epigraph and it says, never forget, monsters thrive best in the dark. Commit all you read here to memory. Prepare for war. And I was like, is this being said to me? I'm supposed to memorize this entire book? Or is this to a character in the book? I am very intrigued as to what this means.
I think it was to you because that was not in my copy. So it must just be for you.
What?
I'm just kidding.
Callie wrote me a note at the beginning of my Kindle Unlimited copy of the book. No, it's just I don't know. We just read through Fourth Wing and the whole intro thing feels like it's very much to me, the reader. It's trying to give me a hint to the book or something. So I'm am I looking too much into this? Or I don't know. So anyways, and then I just thought it was so nice for Connor that Callie put a really nice pronunciation guide at the beginning of the book.
She wrote you a note and she wrote me a pronunciation guide.
She's so kind.
She's so thoughtful.
I know. More authors should do that. Write to us is what I mean.
Specifically.
And pronunciation guides too, but
Well, starting out, chapter 1, The Climb. The very first line in the actual...
I was just about to do that.
Sorry.
You got it.
Sorry, go ahead.
Okay, sorry.
The very first line in the actual like narration of the book is, there's really no need for all this violence. And I was like, what a funny first line to read coming out of the Empyrean series. As it was really like, yeah, I guess we're done with violence for a while.
Yeah, no, that's pretty good.
I just had a quick note at the beginning of chapter 1 that I am loving the duet narration already. It's so cool having the male narrator for all of the male characters and like the guards' voices and stuff like that. I've never listened to an audiobook like this before. This is so cool.
I loved it too. I thought it was really, really cool. I'm back to my map issues here because we don't have one of Sylvarin, and so we get this like wheel and spoke situation that was like really confusing me, and so I seriously put in a question. Can one of the boys find me some fan art of like a map? Is the question here.
Well, yeah, I said I got you, and I put a picture of a spoked wheel because I mean that's exactly what they said. Just how many wards are there? That's how many sections are between the spokes. There you go, bird's eye view.
Okay. Sure.
All right. That solves that one.
Thanks, Kyle.
You're welcome. I'm always here for you.
Anyways, they also keep calling it the Silver City, and we live really close to Silver Dollar City in Branson. And so part of me kept imagining them all in like old-timey clothes, playing the banjo, and they're in the forge. And they're
It is
doing,
also hot as balls there, so.
Yeah, it is.
All right.
So basically, she lives at Silver Dollar City. Okay, then I also just thought the rattles when they called the wet, congested cough of the almost dead or whatever. I was like, calling something so serious the rattles made me laugh so hard for absolutely no reason other I don't know why. It was just funny. And I was really hoping they would just keep saying it.
Is it actually called that though? Because I've heard like the death rattle before.
Yeah, the death
That's like a
rattle.
thing.
Yeah,
Like-
she called it the rattles.
She's like, I got the rattles. It does
I'm gonna
sound
start
sort of
saying that
funny.
now.
Sort of like something that you'd say if like a banjo player was going hot on stage. He's like, he's got the rattles. He's going, man.
It's Silver Dollar City. Anyways. Okay, so Sarah has this interaction with the guard, the one she takes the little, I almost said the little glove, the like gauntlet thing from him. And she says that he was afraid of her because she was contagious from like where she was. But she's not actually contagious, right? Because she like never drank the
No,
water.
I didn't think so.
I don't think so.
No, she was just like making it up
because
to
she's
kind of like
supposed
freak
to
him
be.
out.
Okay.
Yeah. She was playing off that he's never been to the third ward and that he doesn't like really know anything.
Okay. But I'm not
Looks
supposed
like-
to be worried that she's randomly going to get the rattles.
Looks like she got you too.
Okay,
No,
cool.
you're good. Yeah,
She tricked you.
got you, sucker.
I'm just making sure. Okay. And then finally, my last note here was that the first introduction we get to Hayden, her brother, and she said that she was tousling his thick hair. And at first I thought that was her like lover. I was like, oh, okay, romance interest, like sure, whatever. And then it was like little brother later, and I was like, oh, okay. And she's like tousling his hair, so he's got to be like 12 or whatever. And he's such an issue to take care of. He's like an annoying little brother. And then I found out he was 20, and I kind of lost all respect for the man. I was like, dude, why are you such an issue at 20 years old? But all right. And why are you letting her tousle your hair? But okay.
I did have a similar thought process about that. I was like, oh, little brother, sure.
Yeah. And then he's like 20 years old. I was like, that's.
I think if
whatever.
he was 12, it would be so much better. But keep like the gambling problem. Like it's just some 12-year-old in bars all the time playing cards.
He's just slanging deals because that's what he got to do in the third. You know.
Hustling.
Yeah, he's hustling.
What are you gonna do? He's a boys will be boys in the third.
Okay, my last note for chapter 1 is after Sarah steals the gauntlet and it starts vibrating as soon as she climbs up the ledge. I was like, that's weird. Then it started whispering to her, and she's just like, ugh, not again, and like smacks it like you would an old TV or something. So
like an old TV.
Yeah,
That's amazing.
that's basically what happened. So I'm just like, I'm so confused and intrigued by this. And the voice was saying, she sees us, she feels us, she sees us, she feels us. And then that was when she, did the old TV smack. So I don't, my note here was, who?
Ooh.
Who? What?
Is it like the metal is talking to her? Like the metal is saying she feels us? Like all the metals? Because she's a metal allergist?
Yeah, I don't know. Like, what is the voice? And then who is she and who is us? And how I don't know. I'm confused by a lot of that. So I just had to throw that in there.
Yeah. The old
Welcome to
pronoun
being a
game.
first-time reader.
That's correct.
have
That
questions.
is correct. All right, chapter 2, Glassmaker. My first note here is when Elroy is like just giving her hell for like bringing this gauntlet to him, and he was saying that, you know, if they find him, they're just gonna like chop off his hands or whatever, and he's like, "How am I supposed to make a living with no hands, you stupid girl?" And I just wrote, so dramatic, Elroy. Like seriously, I just thought that was really funny on the second read.
Well, and whenever I saw your note here and then I was going through to like write my notes, and like 2 other people get their hands cut off in this chapter section. So apparently this happens all the time. Valid
I guess
fear.
this is not dramatic. Well, I had a lot of notes from chapter 2. There were a lot of reactions and questions here. So I'm just going to kind of rapid fire these. So in Sarah's POV, she's talking about mythical magic users who don't even exist. And I was like, totally. Totally don't exist. Got it. And Elroy says, Madra's reigned over the city for 1,000 years. She will live as she has ever lived, and the beast, aka the city, will still feed and demand more. So my note about Madra here was, so she's totally gonna die, and Sarah seems like the right bad bitch for the job.
Nice.
First impression. And then we get a little bit of Sarah's power, or at least confirmation that she has some kind of power. So it says, sometimes objects shook around me, objects made of iron, tin, or gold, which made me laugh at first because it sounds like such a random power to have. Objects shake around you sometimes.
There she is. Maybe
She's
she'll look at us. Maybe she'll look my way.
People's coins jingling in their pockets as she walks by. Dang it,
That would be kind of handy, I guess, if you're a
honestly,
pickpocket.
like it was
Yeah.
funny to me too because
get
like
me.
your 2 notes ago where she is saying mythical magic users who don't exist, and then she's
Yeah.
randomly like, also metal shake around me, and one time I spun a knife on the table on its hilt, but magic can't be real.
And she just like
Doesn't exist.
hits the gauntlet like an old TV, like, oh, this old thing like happens all the
Yeah.
time.
Such a weird inconvenience. So that like made me laugh at first, but after finishing this chapter section, I am actually like really excited about her power because it's something, I feel like this is something I've never read before.
She
Not
gives metal
literally.
the rattles.
Her power is to rattle.
I've got the rattles.
Everything starts shaking.
Not my silverware drawer. It's all mixed up.
I just organized these. And here we are. She says, I tore my arm free, my jaw working. So cheers, everyone. We
Cheers.
have our
First
first jaw
one.
tick of the season. My next couple of notes are me just like fangirling over Saris. I really like her. The first one was Hayden was an outrageously proficient cheat at cards, second only to me and Sylvarin, perhaps. And my note was, I love her. Hustle 'em, baby. She and Hayden sound like a fun duo. And then where it says, a wild array of outrageous things was whispered about me behind the backs of sunburned hands here, that a man might either get lucky or get beaten unconscious depending on my mood when I sat my ass down at the bar. And I said, she's an icon. I love her. Then we get introduced to Carrion Swift, and his introduction into this book is amazing. He's the only character I've ever really seen like memes about, and they all, at least the memes that I've seen, have given off sort of like Riddick Gamlin vibes.
I would have imagined he was just this one scene character. Move on.
I mean, he might be. I don't know. I thought this whole interaction was hilarious. But my notes were, number 1, redheads represent. And number 2, the only other thing I know about this book is that Kingfisher is, I would assume, the book boyfriend. I see him on like people's book boyfriend lists and stuff. So I'm intrigued by this opening dynamic between Carrion and Saris. Like that's not what I would have expected just based on the very limited amount of things that I'd heard before I started the book. But I am so here for it. The banter is bantering. Last note about Carrion is just the greeting. His first line of the book. Sarah says asshole by way of greeting, and he grins and says bitch. And my note says, okay, I love him. I was just really coming
Noted.
in here.
Yeah, I was gonna say you need to start coming home and
like,
saying
all
these
right.
things, John. Come on.
I don't know what it was. There was more description and stuff before he said it, but I don't know. I just thought it was amazing. Then we meet Bryn, and her waving her ladle menacingly at Saris and Hayden was also hilarious. I just love the whole vibe. It felt very like found family to me, like right off the bat. And I was really loving Stella Bloom as the primary narrator here because I feel like in this scene we got some more of her range, and I really like it. This scene was also funny, side note, because my favorite coffee shop is called Kala.
For real life?
Yeah, for real life, spelled the same way. So I'm always saying like, I'm going to Kala.
Oh my gosh. You could meet
The
Carrion.
name of this town. Yeah.
Sorry, Jon.
Anyway, okay, my next note was where they mention in passing the forgotten gods and all four winds, and I was like, hello, Gods Watch, my old friend.
Yes.
Forgotten gods, my butt.
I even texted you. I was like, hello, God's Watch in chapter, whichever one that it just kind of gave us a little dump.
In the
And you were
first
like, I am
section.
on top of it.
Yeah.
Yeah, you were like, should I be highlighting all of this gods information? And I was like, I got it. Okay, all right. Final note for chapter 2 was for Carrion, of course. Sarah says, you promised you wouldn't gamble with Hayden again. Carrion angled his head, eyes drifting upward as he pretended to think about this. Did I? That doesn't sound like me at all. She goes, Carrion. And he goes, she said my name. He pretended to swoon. You all heard it. She said my name. I'm just obsessed with him. And then she was so reluctant to have a drink with him, and I wrote, oh no, not a drink at a bar with an obscenely hot man who's obscenely good in bed. Whatever will I do? And that's it. Thank you for coming to my chapter 2 TED Talk.
That was beautiful. And the chapter ends when she steps out of the bar and Hayden is gone, and so is the gauntlet. And I just wrote classic little brother behavior.
Classic Hayden.
She's like, don't look in the bag and stay right there. As she goes in and gets mad at him for being somewhere he wasn't supposed to be. It's like,
Yep.
don't know what you expected there, friend. But that takes us to chapter 3, The Kindest Purpose. And we learn about like a bunch of the different shops and a bunch of the like different people kind of in the third. And I was highlighting every single one just to be like, okay, world building. I'm here with it and all the things. But one that I thought was worth mentioning was this person, Vorath Shah. Is that how you say that? Cool. Vorath Shah, who peddled snake oil, it says tiny fragments of metal that he claimed contained traces of arcane gifts that had long since been lost to us. Humans were no longer capable of reading each other's minds or making the blood boil in their enemies' veins or granting themselves eternal luck. Everybody knew that we'd been stripped of those heretical powers hundreds of years ago, but Shaw still made a handsome living selling useless trinkets to the hopeful and the desperate. And I just wrote, sure. Course.
Totally.
Of course. Hundreds of years ago. Totally lost.
Totally.
Good to know. And then we learn a little bit more about Madra and just how horrible she is. And it said that Madra views the third as a filthy corner of the city that she hopes to starve to death or else allow sickness to bite chunks out of us until we have the common courtesy to die. And I just wrote, this Madra lady kind of sucks. It's like, she sounds like the worst.
She definitely does. I had a quick note here, just that the whole time this scene was going on where Hayden was like backed into a corner and stuff, I thought that Carrion was about to swoop in and save Hayden in this scene. I did not expect Sarah's to get herself captured. That is not what I thought was going to happen. But I also...
Carrion's your hero.
Yeah, because I just love him immediately for some reason.
Carry on, my wayward son.
Okay.
I just want him to come back. But Kingfisher, being the only other character that I knew the name of but hadn't met yet, had me wondering if like every single person was Kingfisher. So in this scene, the quiet guard was described as the one who moved like a predator, the one with death in his eyes. And I was like, is this him? And then he died.
I just said, honestly, me too. I remember having that exact same feeling because one of the only things I knew about the book was that name, Kingfisher. So I
Yeah.
too was like, when's this dude showing up? Like every single person that didn't have a name yet, I was like, that's him. That's him.
That's got to be
That's
him.
him.
Yeah.
It's got like
I
one of
even
the
thought
weirdest
some of the
bird names
characters-
for a boy out there. So
Well, I even thought like some of the names, like it would end up being his like street name. Everybody knew him as Kingfisher, but his real name was somebody else, you know, or whatever.
Dave.
Joe.
That could still be true.
Yeah.
I hope that's not the name that his mother chose for him. But
sorry to all the Daves out
I
there.
know.
Yeah, it sucks to be a Dave
Gee,
right now.
get wrecked,
Wow.
Dave. Dave Kahn hates you.
Feels bad for your mom.
Oh my god. That's definitely what I was talking about. I apparently was feeling really silly in this chapter because I had a whole lot of very silly notes, and so I left 3 of them in here, and my preface just says, I'm sorry for these.
He also put it in a smaller font, like you're amidst of these notes in our script.
But you said the first one you also had
Oh,
highlighted, so
100% I did.
I didn't read that. There's a part in the middle of this like fight scene with the guards where it says, and I quote, he winked at me over the top of his mask. And then he came. And I was like, whoa, someone's a little quick off the mark, huh, buddy?
I was like, okay.
You missed a few steps there.
Okay, the next quote is, it was heavier than the wooden practice swords I'd always trained with, but I was used to the length. I said, yeah, she was. Again, I'm so sorry. Last one, the guard gets his hand cut off and he goes, my hand, she cut off my hand. I put the gif from SpongeBob of the fish that's always like, my leg. And that's it. Okay.
Amazing. I'm here for it. Well, she's fighting this one guy and, well, the three of them, but the one that's like, we thought maybe was this Kingfisher guy, the one that seems to be better than the others. She says, and just when he was getting comfortable, when this predator thought he'd finally gotten a read on my capabilities as a fighter, ... I stopped holding back. And I immediately like jumped up. I was like, oh yeah, you did. His eyes went wide as he saw what happened when I loosened my stance and brought the blade up to guard my face. The second when I bared my teeth and came for him, he spoke then, at last, just one word. Shit. And I went, snap, this is epic. And I was literally like snapping. I was like literally hooping and hollering for her. That was insane.
So good.
So good.
Yeah. My note here, I thought this scene was good on the first read, but reading it through the second time, I was just like, oh man. Like, this is the scene in the first read that like really roped me in. When it was like, you see what she's capable of, like, this early, and you're like, well, shoot, if you know something, like, bigger, obviously, is going to happen in the book. Like, she's going to have to be bringing it at some point, like, later in the book, if she's like this now.
My only note for this chapter was something that she yelled at her brother, or that she said about her yelling at her brother, because she, like, literally screams at him, calls him an idiot or whatever, tells him to get out of there, and she thinks to herself, it was harsh, but sometimes the cruel things we said served the kindest purpose. And my red flag diary came out there.
First one of the season.
I know, early. But
Early.
It's because it's one of my biggest pet peeves, and honestly, I fall into it a lot myself.
A dandelion.
The prioritization of intent over impact. So, like, caring more about what your intention was than how it affected someone, which is not a super great way to think. Like, we all do less than altruistic things for our perception of the greater good, but we can't let that become an excuse for how our words and actions affect others. And I'd love for Sarah to ask herself what the kindest purpose is, and if she felt that this cruelty was the only way to achieve her desired outcome, or is there any other way she could convey the message? Does she believe kindness has to hurt to be effective?
Speak it.
I don't know. Most of the time, the mindset is like a survival tactic, often associated with a difficult upbringing, which 3 chapters in, yeah, she got that going on. So, like, understandable to a certain extent. But our past only explains our behavior. It doesn't excuse it. And unfortunately for her, the admission that she even says, like, oh, I needed to do this because of this. Like, that's her admitting she knows there's a pattern. So now I'm just interested to see if she's willing to break it.
Ooh.
Wow.
Nice.
That was a
Okay,
good
well,
one.
Pastor
Yeah, that
Kyle
was
bringing the
great.
sermon.
Thanks, Counselor Kyle.
Counselor Kyle. Counselor with a K.
Whoa, hey.
Let's not add a third one in there, okay? Careful.
we got too many.
Hold on a second.
So Saris says this stuff to Hayden and he responds, but one of the things he does is he sets his jaw. So this is Drinkies as a goodbye to Hayden. Bye-bye, Hayden.
Woohoo.
Good luck not dying, hopefully.
Goodbye. Get out of here. Don't you see we don't want you? On
Well,
to
get.
chapter 4, The Price. She talks about how much water they're given, and 6 ounces of water that is only cleaned through a grate that only takes out the solids of the refuse of another district is freaking awful. Like,
Yes,
that description, I was like, yeah, I would never, not that I drink much water now, but I definitely wouldn't if I lived there.
Well, no wonder they're
Drink
all
more than that in one
contagious and
episode.
sick. I
Yeah.
just drink 6 ounces now on that last Drinkies.
And the guy defends it like it's a good thing. He was like, it has a grate. Like, well, what more do you want? At least put a coffee filter down there, man.
Oh, disgusting.
It's sad.
Yes, I did love this line from Saris, though, when she's talking to the captain as they're walking to the Hall of Mirrors. And she says, do you know much about metalwork, Captain? Because I do. It's under the most unbearable conditions that the sharpest, most dangerous weapons are forged. And we are dangerous, Captain. She's turned us all into weapons. And I was like, ooh, tell them.
And she can control weapons, so maybe she'll like control all these people to like take her
Ooh.
down or something. Look at that.
Literally
Just figured out the
be
book.
a weapon.
Just figured it out. She's going to
Got 'em.
control the people and take her down. Well, thanks for listening to
can
our
quote me on that.
podcast. Join us next week where we cover a whole nother book because I figured this one out.
I'm back with some more questions. The captain says, when Sarah's like asks like literally where they are, he says it used to be a hall of mirrors, but that was a long time ago, and then just moves on. And I was like, okay, so what does this mean? Why would there have been a hall of mirrors in the palace, and why are the mirrors all gone, but the hall is still really important?
I didn't know what this was when I was reading it, but my guess after doing my notes and like having the 8 chapters of information that I have was that there were different portals of Quicksilver or something, and so they looked mirrory or something,
mirrors.
and they were all shimmery.
Shimmer. Okay.
Yeah,
All
and that
right.
was like how they traveled
That makes sense.
there, and that's also why they like locked the doors. So now, just in case somebody activated it or something, that's my guess.
Yeah, I like that. That. That's good.
Thank you.
That's good. Okay. All right. Well, my next note from this chapter is that it's just super interesting to me that we are actually meeting the queen this early, because that makes me think that she is maybe going to be a big bad in this book and die in this book. That was my first thought. I have some more thoughts on that later in my like thoughts and theories section. But just from the way they talked about her in the first couple chapters, I did not think this was a character we would meet so soon. So that was surprising to me.
Maybe because we've left this world, so they had to introduce her to us before we were gone for a really, really
Yeah,
long
I guess
time.
that's true.
For me, it was when Madra said, "It was the Fae, wasn't it? They found a way through. They've come for me at last." And having literally zero information about this book whatsoever, when I heard the word Fae, I was like mind blown. Like, I knew literally nothing. And I said this to Kyle, and he goes, "Lauren, it's called the Fae and Alchemy series." And I was like, "It is? Where does it say that?"
I was like,
doesn't
we
say
said
that on the
that
book.
on the podcast. We were like, we're reading book 1 of the Fan Alchemy series.
Okay, I muted the
Oh
headphones.
I mean, I don't
Anyways.
mind you being surprised. I just thought it was funny.
It just like, it was one of those things too that when you read so many fantasy things or watch so many movies or whatever else, it was like, it unlocked that part of my brain. I was like, okay, this is what I need to be looking for now. If there's Fae involved.
To be fair, though, I didn't know that it was like called the Fae and Alchemy series
you.
until like 2 weeks ago. So
And you read the whole book already.
yeah, yep.
It was because you asked me about this moment. You were like, what did you didn't have any reaction
yeah,
to there
that's
being
right.
Fae? And I was like, it's called Fae and Alchemy. And
So surprised.
Also, like, whenever I saw this now, or when Kyle said that with Fae and Alchemy, I was like, oh, that makes sense because she's like an alchemist or whatever. Like, it all made sense.
I think at some point in our personal talks about it, before John and I even started reading it, maybe Khan referred to it as the Fate Alchemy series. So, like, I was sort of just waiting on him to show up.
I think I like blocked out any information about this book.
Yeah, but I was also like very surprised when this happened. Like when I read it for the first time, I was just like, oh man, it's like this is amazing. So I'm glad that you had the reaction that I was looking for because
I freaked out.
yeah,
Full on panic.
Same.
But she like follows this with stuff about Fae, where Sarah says, does she believe in unicorns too? Lost lands that existed millennia ago, swallowed by the desert, ghosts and the forgotten gods? Because none of it is real. And I was like, so like all of that is real, right?
there's unicorns.
Says unicorns. That'd be so fun. And then we learn that the Fae were warmongers, cannibals, beastly creatures with no temperance, sense of morality, nor any notion of mercy. The eldest immortals visited their wrath upon the land with an iron fist, leaving a path of chaos and destruction in their wake. The 7 cities rejoiced when I cast them out. And I'm like 99% sure that Madra is Fae, right? Like, how else could she be so old? But, like, later when we're in Euvalia, we learn that someone says that she's human. But
Yeah.
I just feel like that can't be true. How else does somebody
think it's
live for
Everlane.
thousands of years or whatever?
I have some thoughts about it later.
Kind of nice that she was giving her these trigger warnings, though, because Sarah might have just been thinking, like, I'm okay with 3 out of 5 of those things. So, like, that's cool.
Oh, yeah, before she decides to go with the guy.
Yeah.
Give another trigger warning. And then while she's still having this, like, little evil monologue that, you know, all evil people do whenever they're in front of their arch nemesis, or soon to be, maybe, I don't know. But she being Madra, spun around and suddenly opened up her arms, laughing dryly as she gestured to the room about her. That's why we met here, of course. I had to see for myself if this place remained untouched. The banished fae can't return as long as all remains the same here, you see. I knew nothing would have changed, but I do have a nasty habit of letting paranoia get the better of me. I just feel like that's super random, that like she could just come and check in here anytime she wants. Like, it's her world, it's her castle, it's her country. Yeah. Like, if you want to come check out this room, just peek your head in there. Oh, looks normal today. Like, lock the door and walk away. Why would you bring in like a prisoner to that location? Especially if you think they have something to do with the fae. Like, that just feels really random to me.
Yeah.
Doesn't feel very thought out, but
I see what you're saying.
Yeah, you could have just met her wherever you meet your normal prisoner meetings.
Yeah.
Why to go to this dusty old room that's locked up for some reason? But And then we learn from Madra that she is going to take everything from Sarah. She says, first, I'll take your life. Then I'll make a column of greasy smoke out of those who matter to you. When they're gone, I will tear the third ward to the ground. For the next 100 years, any foolish enough to think twice about stealing from me will remember the black day Sarah's Fane offended the Zilvaran crown, and 100,000 people paid the price. That is a wildly dramatic reaction to someone stealing somebody's gauntlet. Yeah, their mitten. Like
a metal mitten.
Calm down, lady. Like, she's already like in the third. You know the life she's living, but whatever. I feel like earlier Sarah said that she thought they were just waiting for the third to die, so maybe this is Madra's excuse to just make it happen faster or something, but she just kind of sucks. That was my first thought about her. Still think
really
that.
Does. I support it.
Okay, well, that takes us to chapter 5. It's called Heretic, and Heron is this like captain who's been with her this whole time, and he like offered her water as they went down the hallway and stuff. And I was like hoping that he was like secretly a good guy, and maybe he was like part of some rebellion and he was gonna like take her away to kill her, quote, but then actually like help hide her or help her join the resistance or, you know, something. But instead he literally stabs her in the stomach, and I was like, okay, well, there goes that theory. I was like, that didn't happen. But I have another random comment. I really appreciate Callie Hart's writing with like all the little musical references that she writes in here. I just think they're fun. Earlier, she was talking about like when 3 things happened, and she said 3 things happened in concert together. And I was like, oh, that's a neat way of saying that. And then here, Madra was trying to make Sarah sing. She wanted Heron to do that, and so she was like, I'm gonna give Madra the music she requested. I thought that was interesting. And then later, whenever she actually takes the sword that Kingfisher like comes for or whatever, she says a song couldn't be unsung. I just, every single one of those, I was like, oh, I love this. Oh, so cute.
Music.
Some music.
I love it. I was just too stoked about this, I think, to think about the music references because they were cool. But I love this quote here. Almost as stunned as Heron, I watched as the knife liquefied in the captain's gloved hand and ran through his fingers in rivulets of rolling silver. And my note said, all caps, well, that's fun. It's way more fun than just objects shaking around you. So I had a couple of notes here that I think maybe are related, Lauren, to your question about if Madra is fae or not. I don't know. But Captain Heron's eyes are glassy and he's emotionless as he carries out this command to kill Sarah. So it seems like the queen has some sort of like mind control powers, or like is, I don't know, somehow controlling him. And then Sarah says, you don't want to come with me through that doorway you mentioned, do you, Captain? And she's talking about like dying basically. And he said, I can't go. She won't let me, which really solidified that for me. And then Heron is like, I feel like he just keeps talking to himself like through this whole interaction, like even after Death shows up and stuff, like Heron's just kind of talking in the corner. And it says, monster, he hissed, you'll end the world with this. Don't let it take me, please. And it seems like Sarah thinks that he's talking to her, but I think he was trying to talk to the queen. But also I was trying to figure out like what the heck she was doing this whole time. Like, did the queen leave and allow this whole scene to play out? Like, I don't.
That's how I took
that part.
She was like, make her sing, and then she like took off for Heron to kill her or whatever.
She just pieced out, I guess. Yeah. And later in this chapter, Heron bellows, die. And then he says, I will not take your lies and your serpent tongue, choke on it, die. And the whole time I'm like, what? Nobody else thinks this is weird. I'm like, no. Like, Sarah was just like either ignoring him or like thought that he was talking to her.
I mean, she was
So
stabbed in the stomach, so she
I
had a
know.
little bit going on.
She was a little distracted. All of those little lines from him, I was like, what is happening? But that kind of played into like, after hearing Everlane say that she's human and like dismiss that, I feel like maybe either she was one of the humans from hundreds of years ago who could speak into people's mind or read people's minds or whatever it said, that maybe she had some powers from that. But I feel like maybe she's somehow manipulating some kind of power in order to stay alive. And that's why the Fae are like trying to come for her or something. I don't know. I don't necessarily think that she's Fae. I feel like she's maybe just doing something shady, because this feels real shady to me.
Well, yeah, she's definitely
She
doing
sucks.
something. I'm like trying to make all the eye contact with the boys and just see their reactions to anything we say, because I don't know Kyle's tell, like when in this setting specifically. They guessed it. I'm trying to see like if we say something, if it's like, you know, anyways.
Jon keeps trying to offer information up to me, and I'm like, no, stop.
John,
Well, yeah,
Today
guys,
he
in
said, "Can I
chapter
tell you something
26, if you read further, you know.
Today he was like, can I tell you something about Quicksilver? It's not really a spoiler. And I was like, no.
John.
Lauren would do the exact same.
Oh, 100%.
Yeah.
I'd mute you.
Even mentioning it, she probably won't let me talk about it till this podcast is over.
Yeah.
Just for the mistake I might make.
Yeah, I've been spoiled before. It's not fun. Not from you necessarily, just like in
No,
general.
I spoil you all the time. Come on.
He's so sweet.
Oh, Kyle.
Stop. When Kingfisher finally shows up and Heron's still like saying all this crazy stuff, Kingfisher says to him, I can't pull it out of you. Your fate's sealed. And I'm like, so yeah, something like that Heron has going on inside of him, whether or not it's actually like her mind control and he can't like pull that out, or it's like a physical something. And I don't know what that is.
A word
John
stone,
is
perhaps.
laughing. I don't know what that is about. But okay. And then also Heron was talking about like the obsidian in the ground passageways or whatever, kind of in
Yeah.
the same area. And I just feel like he was spouting some random crap, but it's probably like the most important crap we read in this
Probably.
entire chapter section, because that's usually how those authors get you. They're like, important information, hot guy. Important information, hot guy. Important information, hot
kept thinking
guy.
about-
It's like,
Proper name,
kept
place
thinking
name,
about-
backstory.
I kept thinking about the TikTok sound where it's like, I always see people use the sound when they're like acting like they're reading, but it's like something, and we walk into the bank exploded.
Oh, yeah.
I always think of her, it's like, here's some information. Suddenly something crazy is happening.
This is another one of those things, like this whole scene, especially when Heron's like talking to her right before he like goes to work. I like do not remember it being this intense. Like when I reread this, he stabs her in the gut, and first of all, she just like, oh, I guess her hands are bound. I guess I forgot about that. But it's like she's got a sword sticking out of her stomach. This was like so much more vivid on my second read. Like my mouth was open this whole time. I was just like, oh my gosh, like crazy.
How did you read it the first time, and how are you reading it the second time?
I did Kindle first time, and I'm doing like a little bit of audiobook now. And I think I'd like to try and do it, because I think, Lauren, you said that you were doing it. Is it like immersion or immersive style, where
do
you're
it.
listening and reading the physical book or the
That's
physical?
what I do.
It makes it
So-
so much better.
Yeah.
Especially with like this duet narration and hearing
Yeah.
like all the
Yes.
voices and stuff.
I think I'm going to try to do that. So I'm going to make more of an effort this week to do that. So
Because that's what
Yes.
like some of these scenes that I'm like, oh my gosh, that was so cool. And sometimes it's
I
like
know.
the voice inflection and
Yeah.
the things that are added into it. Plus, obviously, your own imagination as the story's being read.
because it can be hard for me to like stick with it when I'm just listening to the audio. So if I was like sitting down listening to the audio while reading, like I think that would be sweet.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I also
Yeah.
feel like
That's
I
the
go
way to go.
faster. Like
Yeah,
Oh, yeah.
me too.
when I'm just reading by itself, and then when I have the audio like with it and stuff. But
So the first time I did audiobook while I was at work alone. So I knew there was some stuff that I was like, it may not have connected because I was sort of distracted by doing other things. The second time that I'm doing it now, I have been doing the audiobook. Some people might hate this. I've been doing the audiobook while playing like a farming game.
Oh,
So
yeah.
I'm just like farming and I'm hearing things and like harvesting corn, being like, interesting. And then I'll have my other my other screen open and like write a note, and then I
He's
go
at
back
Silver
to
Dollar
farming.
City.
Second job. Because usually with audiobooks I did try audiobook and reading at the same time, but my brain, I guess, hates being told and reading it at the same time. It's like two warring things about being like, oh, I sure do like listening, and the other one's like, I'm already reading it. So that sort of thing.
No, you just got to find the right speed and the right balance.
I know, and I tried like adjusting for my reading speed, but farming worked better.
I feel like I have to do something while, like if I'm listening to an audiobook, I got to be like doing something at the same time. So I usually have the ebook open while I'm listening, but then I'll be like going on a walk or something where I have to like actively be doing something.
I'll look back at the
same time.
ebook to like get specific wording if I need to. But yes, like a nothing game or doing like paper craft stuff that I sometimes do.
Yeah.
Usually if it's a regular audiobook, I pick like fluffy whatever reads so that I can feel like I'm, working in my classroom and also, audiobook or something. But when it's a book like I really want to read, I save it specifically for the times that I can sit there and like really like fully be invested. Right. So I guess somebody will take it seriously. I'm just kidding.
Okay, once again, I would like to know what the small voice is that's whispering into Sarah's mind, please.
Hey, little mama, let me whisper in your ear.
I've been trying to reach you about your car's extended warranty.
No, I also love the way her magic was just described. Like she imagined like a third hand coming out and grabbing the dagger. And then also just like how the magic felt like it was calm to her. It was like a cold presence inside of her. It was like almost asking her questions and waiting for her response. Like the whole thing was just so well written, and I'm just like super intrigued as to how it all works. And I'm really interested in, I don't know, hopefully learning like way more about it and stuff. And I don't know, I'm invested.
Same. The next quote that I had in here was, the pool at my feet was more silver than I had ever seen in my life. It had been solid. Now it was softening by the second. The roiling mass of it was already up to my ankles. And I was like, oh, Quicksilver, like quicksand. Okay.
Yeah.
Starting to connect things now. All right.
Yeah, at first I thought it was just like going to be the daggery stuff, but I guess she did that to the whole pool too. I don't know. Either way, I'm invested in how this whole metal stuff works. I'm excited. The only meteorologist I know is Sawyer, and we don't really get to know much about his power. So I'm just excited to like actually, I don't know, learn more.
Then comes death. She said, the bastard had come to claim me in person. And I wrote, so this is Kingfisher, right?
What if it wasn't?
Still just throwing out
Keep
guesses.
guessing.
Well, they don't even tell you in this chapter, but I was like, it has to be.
In part of his description, it said he towered over me, his lips pulled back into a snarl, revealing white teeth and sharp canines. I just wrote, are the lips sensual or
Just key information that
No
we need
description
to
of
know
the
here.
lip.
I think it's so funny that you brought this up because I mentioned sensual lips in a later comment. I love this.
If you have not listened to the last full year of our episodes yet, Sensual Lips is a callback to our Throne of Glass days.
True.
It's like all of the villains in the book were described as having like super sensual lips. It
As
just
they should
became a
be.
running joke.
self-care
As they
is, pretty big.
And my last note for this chapter, a long silver chain hooked around his index finger, his being death. He unfastened it, and then he says, if you die before you can give this back, I'm not going to be happy. And I was like, oh my God, he gave her a necklace?
I really wish I could have found the gift for this, but my note here was the, oh my God, oh my goodness, oh my God, like Winston from New Girl. I couldn't find the exact gift, but that's what it made me
I
think of.
appreciate that. Thank you.
And we move into chapter 6 here, titled Everlane. And this is when Saris wakes up and... Oh, yeah. Okay. Well, she doesn't wake up right at the start of the chapter. Intrigue. Suspense. But it's like she goes through this like mental darkness for like a little bit before she kind of like comes back to consciousness, right? And it says, I lay in the darkness and shivered, wishing that she would fuck off. And this made me laugh out loud after we hear that like there's a female voice that's been like talking to her and singing to her. Because it's like so staggering to know after she wakes up that it's Everlane and she's like so sweet and nice. And she's like wanting to tell this voice to like go F off. I just thought that was kind of funny.
Set the scene. It's 4 a.m. and your kid comes in your room and you're like half asleep and you just hear this little voice. And you're like, what would you think?
Not F off. I would recognize my daughter's voices.
I'd be like, I'm sleeping. You still get up and help. Like, it's fine. But there's that brief moment.
Oh, yeah.
And then as she's kind of describing her surroundings a little bit, she's describing the bed, how it's like way bigger. And she's like thinking maybe she woke up in Carrion's bed. And she's like, well, this bed is way bigger. And it also doesn't smell like muskrat. And I was like, what a description. Holy cow. And also, what does that smell like? I don't know. Maybe I don't want to know. But I just thought that was like super random descriptor
funny.
here.
Oh,
It's
good.
pretty funny.
So Everlane is talking about Death, aka Kingfisher, here, and it says, because Sarah refers to him as a man, and she says, and she corrects her and says, a male. He came because the sword called to him. ... And I said, is this a fated mate situation,
Mates?
or is this
Mates?
mate?
You say mates?
or is this sword just a really good wingman? I don't know.
I'm not mad about either of those.
Yeah, I'm not either. Sword called to him. He had to
go.
Get this. Had to go. Yeah.
If a sword calls, you gotta answer.
For swords, it's actually a
It's the
good
rules.
swing man. Sorry, that's so dumb. So dumb.
That was good and bad. Well, Everlane continues the conversation and says, Gods, I still don't know your name, unless you don't have one. And Sarah says, of course I have a name. It's Saris. And she says, I could count on one hand the amount of people I'd given my real name to when prompted. And I just wrote, rule number 1, you never give the Fae your name. You know anything about the Fae, at least the D&D Fae. Or
It's always a good
you
idea.
I
don't
thought
give
it
them
was
your name.
never make a deal with the Fae.
That's there too. There's several rules with dealing with the D&D Fae. That
But
are
like,
pretty-
if a Fae, they'll say stuff like, would you give me your name? And then you say your name, and now they have literally taken it from you. You have
Yeah.
given them your name, and they'll like trick
You're-
you into
like
little
you would
things.
not be able to say your name. Everyone who knows you would no longer know your name.
Like, your name is gone.
Yeah.
Like, that's a regular thing. And John, you're about to start playing D&D with Kyle. I don't know what your campaign is, but rule number 1, never give the Fae your name.
Speaking of Fae, as soon as Sarah says her name, Everlane says, Saris, a pretty name, a Fae name. And I was like, is she half Fae? Because I was wondering why she had such a cool, unique name. And then her brother's name is Hayden.
Sorry to all the Haydens out there. Guess your name's not cool and unique.
Haydens and dames, not good enough for con.
Cross them off. But then Saris in her POV thinks about the songs our mother sang to Hayden and me when we were tiny. And I was like, okay, she's totally part Fae. But then that also means Hayden would also be part Fae. So sorry, Hayden.
Part of me just heard you say parfait instead of part Fae. Hayden is also a parfait.
Parfait is maybe the most delicious food on the whole day plate.
It's like, they call some characters cinnamon buns and stuff like that. Parfait is another type of character.
That means they have layers.
They got layers.
Layers.
Thank you.
No, my note here for Saris, a pretty name, a Fae name. And I wrote, Saris, you mean Ferris? Spelled the same, just with a different letter.
Bueller. Sarah's Bueller's Day Off.
Saris Bueller.
Oh, my word. Ooh, we're losing it. Okay, then we find out that she's in the Winter Palace, and my note here was, is Everlane Elsa? Like, is she gonna have Elsa powers? They live in the Winter Palace? That'd be so fun. But I didn't know anything about her at this point, so like, obviously we know her dad is king. I was kind of thinking maybe she was secretly the queen or something, or
Oh.
who knows what, but still, she could still have some sort of cool
Still.
power or something going on.
And well, she's got that going on, and then Saris has this voice calling to her that she keeps ignoring. So that's also her Elsa
Oh my
moment.
gosh, yes.
I mean, they're
Ice Palace for one. Ice Palace for one.
this. Okay, then in walks Renfest.
Say it.
His bare, muscular forearms covered in intricate, interwoven tattoos. My note is all caps, hello.
For me, it was the audiobook narrator's Scottish accent that I can just not get out of my head. Ooh, I'm sweating. And literally, like, later when we're in the hall and they bring Kingfisher in and we just hear a voice, like, yelling and you don't know it's Renfist yet, but he started saying it in his little Scottish accent and I was just like, I just started giggling. He's back.
Imagining him saying traitors.
Yeah. No, it's not that kind of. It doesn't sound the same as that.
My
This is a
whole
hot
thing with
one.
Renfist, though, this is a
Yikes.
hot one.
Sorry to all the Scots with that accent. You're off Lauren's list.
My whole thing with Renfist is I couldn't get his name right in my head. I had to practice saying it because I kept saying Fenris instead of Renfist. But we're getting there.
Yeah.
My next note, though, is when Everlane says, long hair is a sign of high-born status for fey women. And I said, toss.
But also,
And I
she's
said-
fake.
Well,
I said R.I.P. Lauren, who had just cut her hair so short. Looks so good, but you're not going to be highborn fae anymore. And they also said dark hair's a royal trait, which also double R.I.P. to you. You have the blonde hair, so not royal,
It's
not
fake
even
blonde.
highborn. I guess you could still be fae,
mine
but
is fake dark.
be one of those mid-tier fae, you know?
Thanks, Kyle. You're
Love
so
ya.
encouraging.
You spoil me.
You spoil me. Okay, this is my sensual lips comment when they were getting ready to go to like the court to meet the king and stuff, and they like took a bath and she was getting her dress on and all the things, and then Everlane came up and said she swept her fingers across the thick waxy resin inside and rubbed it across her lips, basically giving her chapstick. And I was like, oh, sensual lips bomb.
So they go through their whole glow up montage moment where she's getting her all dolled up, and then the end of the chapter is Everlane saying, all right then, I'd say we're ready. And my note was, oh darn, they forced me to look more stunning than I ever have. Time to go unexpectedly run into the love interest. Which sort of happens, but sort of not.
Crazy how that always works out.
And that brings us to chapter 7, the dog. This is a special shout out note to all of my Emily Henry Beach Read girlies because it says, we had no stone like this back in Zulvarin, but Everlane explained that it was a rare type of pale Labradorite. If you have read Beach Read by Emily Henry, this one's for you.
My note here in this chapter, this is when Everlane mentions a moon, and Saris mentioned shortly after that she doesn't know what a moon is. And I remember thinking that this was just pretty crazy. It was just like a small detail, like we found out that with the two suns, and it's like always daylight in Zulvarin.
Yeah.
So I just thought that was kind of a cool little detail from her desert life before she came over here.
Does that mean like the two suns are in the sky at the exact same time?
I don't know.
Or is it still like one and then like one goes down while the other one comes up, kind of like what the moon should be?
I think so.
They described it as such. Usually there is one sun in the sky at a time, and then I think the Everlight festival that was in the pronunciation guide, I'm pretty sure it's like when both of them are in the sky at the same time, and it's like the hottest part of the year or whatever, and like people die because of the heat and stuff like that.
R.I.P.
Yeah, not a good. It's never a good heat because it doesn't have time to cool. Technically speaking, they'd all be dead already if they didn't have nighttime. But whatever.
I guess it depends on how close the two suns are.
Yes, that's true.
But then they do mention the reckoning, which is when the two suns are the closest. So that sounds
Also
not fun.
horrible. It was wild to me though. Whenever she took her bath, that was like the realization for me to be like, oh,
with all
dang.
like the water.
Yeah, with
Yeah.
the water and her cleaning her hair. She's never cleaned her hair like that before. Like all of that
Yeah.
stuff
Yeah.
was when it was like really settled in.
Yeah.
Like the
With like
world
water
that
she
lived
could
in.
see into or whatever.
And it was
Yeah.
warmed water, like on purpose, not just like
Yeah.
grossly warm water, because that's all
You can tell the difference between on purpose warm and accident warm.
you can though.
You can.
Well, then we get a big old God's Watch where Everlane says, the gods, of course, don't you worship the Corcoran in the Silver City anymore? And I was like, ding, 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 ding. I highlighted like the whole section.
There was so
I
much
was so
God's
excited.
Watch.
Yes.
Yeah, there was a ton of things, and you list them all in your pronunciation guide and all of the things. The couple that I found was the most interesting here was that it was the Balmithan being split into two, and then that was like the same name or really similar names to her planet, like, or like the suns or whatever from wherever she's at. So interesting that there seems to obviously be like that crossover and stuff. And then also, will it mean something that she rubbed the foot of Zareth, the god of chaos and change, to like push him away or whatever it was described at? I just feel like there's sometimes in books that it's just like, oh yeah, the gods, whatever, and then nothing has to do with them. And then there's other times that it's like everything has to do with them, and I don't know how much I'm supposed to pay attention.
Yeah.
I'm just going to remember that this one god, though, has been pushed away from her. So whatever that means.
We are paying attention.
Yeah. And I guess much like the fight scene that Jon said was sort of his moment of like getting roped in, this was mine, where they talked about, you said the twin goddesses Balmithyn, now Baal, and Mithyn, bore striking resemblance to Ceres' world's own goddesses, Alia and Min, and it gave her a strange feeling of connection, and that was like the first time that I was like, okay, that's odd. And like started like dialing in a little bit more.
I love it.
It's all coming together. Except for it's not.
all
I just have
coming
more questions. One tiny connection.
So, and my next question follows this little quote here, where they walk in and see the dais, and it's described, it says, the skull of a giant beast loomed over the labradorite dais. Shout out to labradorite. The bone bleached white and ghostly. Its orbital sockets are 6 feet wide. Its horned brow plate jutted from the shadows like the mast of a sand skiff. And its teeth, saints and martyrs, its teeth, they were stained and terrible, each one razor sharp and at least 12 feet long. She says, what is it? Everlane says, a dragon, the last dragon, a legend amongst my people. So my notes were as follows. Number 1, cool. Number 2, are there motherfucking dragons in this series? I got so excited about this.
Dragons?
Dragons? The last dragon? It was also hilarious to me in this moment that Sarah keeps asking follow-up questions. Like, what do you mean? And Everlane's like, bro, now is not the time. Like, going to meet the king right now.
I just appreciate that she's asking questions, though.
Yes.
Like,
yeah, for sure.
She sees something and she asks about it. I appreciate that. It's annoying she doesn't get the answer because I want to know all the things, but...
Yes. Then the king tells her, you're about to spend a great deal of time in the libraries. And I said, oh no, I'm being forced against my will into the massive libraries of the giant magical Fae Palace.
I just put the gif under that of, no, I'm bummed. Oh, that's terrible.
Terrible. Okay, and then... the king says to Ceres, you're charged with awakening the Quicksilver and reopening the pathways between this world and the others. So I would like to know which other worlds, and do we get to see these other worlds in this series? I'm so intrigued by this.
My note here just said, they said Quicksilver. We did it.
Roll
In
credits.
the first chapter section.
We read the book.
Roll credits, Kyle. Okay, well then they bring in Kingfisher, and it just said, somebody went, boom, boom, boom. And I wrote 3 big booms for Kingfisher. You don't know what that is?
The Costco guys.
Yeah.
Boom, boom, boom. My absolute favorite, like super, I guess, cringeworthy moment of them is they were streaming and people were just like pitching them things to give booms to, and someone in the chat was saying that like their brother was dying, and he was just like, oh, I'm so sorry to hear about that. 5 big booms for your brother. Boom, boom. And like started going off, and everyone was like, I don't know if that was the time for booms.
Anyways, 3 big booms for Kingfisher. That's my note.
Yeah.
Wow.
They should have done like a respect boom. Like,
Yeah.
boom.
Boom. Boom.
You know?
It's like a 21
Like
boom
Dolan's
salute.
high five.
21 boom salute. Oh my God. Connor, you need to look that up after this episode.
Yeah.
I can't wait for this to be the Discord chat of this episode.
Guys, when you're done listening to this episode, be sure to give us 5 big booms.
In the comments.
Oh my gosh. Obviously, I mean, I live under a rock, so I feel like most of the time when people reference stuff, I'm like, I don't.
That is a fairly new one.
Oh, that's funny. My next note was when they finally say Kingfisher's name, and I just typed, yay! In all caps.
We
'Cause
found
I've been waiting
him.
for chapters. Yes, we did it. And then it describes him, and it says tattoos writhed and shifted like smoke across every patch of visible skin, creeping up the back of his neck and swirling over the backs of his hands. And I said, hot.
End of sentence.
The part where the crowd is shouting, like they're all like shouting his different names and like there's a couple of little moments like that. Those are so cool in the audiobook with the
Really
duet
cool.
narration. They like overlap all the little like names and phrases and stuff. It sounds so cool. I was not expecting that.
Yeah, I did really like that part too. I noted it. Like other names of note for Kingfisher were like the Living Curse, Bane of, is it Gilthry?
Gilthry, yeah.
Gilthry, and Black Knight. What due to the audiobook, which I read at first, it was cool. I didn't catch all those names until I was reading them with my own special eyes, so I could actually see them
Look at the book
in the
with your
book.
special eyes.
Look with your special eyes.
Yeah, but also like. And I'll only mention it once now that like his name's out there. It is a weird name to me still.
It's super
Yeah.
weird name, yes.
That's why I thought it would end up being like his like street name, and his real name was not Dave apparently, but something else.
name.
You know,
On
everyone
the streets
just
of
knew
the Fae,
him.
they call me Kingfisher.
I don't know what else to describe it as. His alias.
It's just
I don't know.
It's odd because like it's a bird, first of all, which is fine.
I
But
did
like
not know that.
I also
Oh,
do
yeah.
not know that. What's it look like? A bird?
okay, so you know the book Mel Fell that we read to our
Yeah.
children? That's a kingfisher bird.
Oh, okay.
So they dive into water, grab
It's a cute
fish,
book.
and
You guys should get it.
pop right out of them. It is. It's a cute book.
It's like
Oh, it's
it
cute.
goes this way,
Yeah.
and then the book like turns around because he goes in the water, and then it goes this way. And
Oh.
you
yeah.
read it.
Kids book rec. Mel Fell.
Mel Fell by the
Cute.
author of name I don't know.
Oh, I like this little bird.
Yeah.
Little bird.
kingfisher. So they dip into water, grab a fish, and pop right back out. But like I don't know. I was thinking the whole time, I was like, out of all
Does
the
that mean
other,
Sarah
like,
sees
even
the little
mythological. Oh, he like
just-
dipped in, got
he
her,
just
and
went
came
in the
back
pool,
out.
grabbed
Hey,
Saris,
you
and then
know?
went back. So
Maybe.
Saris is the little fish. She's a little fish.
I figured it was more of like a title.
That's what I thought it was. Yeah, but
But then they just
Yeah.
call him Fisher other times.
Yeah.
Like they call her Lane and him Fisher.
yeah, if you're gonna pick one word out of that name to nickname someone, King would be kind of cool. Like,
I guess.
Well,
but there's an actual
if
king.
it's a title though, he would be
the king of the Fishers.
the fisher for the king.
follow me and I'll make
don't know
you a
what it-
fisher of kings.
You teach a king to fish.
But you can't teach a fish to king, I'll tell you that much. Anyway, out of all like the real birds and mythological birds, I was like, I mean, you had Phoenix, Peregrine, if you wanted to get a little
Oh
fancy.
yeah, yeah.
Call him
But-
Perry.
Yeah.
Perry!
Or grin.
Perry, the kingfisher. Anyway, just a funny name, and I never truly got over it, but I'm only going to mention it this one time, I promise.
I have
hold you
heard
to
lots
that.
of people say that when they recommend the book, and they're like, "His name's Kingfisher. I know it's dumb. You just got to see past it."
Oh my gosh. I wonder what the author feels of that.
I guess
I don't
I
know.
wonder if there's an
Find out.
interview. I've avoided everything
Yeah.
about this, so that will be one of the things I look up.
If we get to interview Callie, we'll put it on the list.
Okay. Well, as they bring in Kingfisher and they're yelling all these names at him and stuff, she says that some were yelling and it says others were stony, hard expressions, and they looked at each other with clenched jaws. So, how many drinkies do we do for an entire
Nope.
crowd's worth of clenched jaws? Oh,
How
God.
many drinks does it
just
take
took
to get home?
took the whole lid off. Chug, chug, chug.
I don't know if we have any left, so I'm going to save a little bit. That was probably loud. I apologize.
I think that was our
Yeah.
last clenchies.
Clenchies?
Clinkies and jaw clench into
Jaw clench.
clenchies. Well, Everlane tries to stop the king from killing Kingfisher, basically, and she says, Maui, now, if you bore my mother any love at all, you'll do something to save him. So, first of all, does this, like, oracle lady make everything up? Because she's just kind of sitting there like, all right, I guess I'll help. And then all of a sudden goes into this whole, like, show of, like, making all these, like, oracle-y decrees and whatever. So that was just really interesting. Also, why does Everlane care so much about this dude? And also, I just all of it makes me feel like they have to be siblings, maybe, because that's why Everlane's mom would care, because she says, like, if you bore my mother any love at all, you would do something to save him. So that means it would be Everlane's mom's son, but maybe not the king's son, since he's like willing to kill him or something.
Yeah. Maybe the king also sucks.
Well, that's true.
I agree. I do think that Everlane and Kingfisher are siblings. I like had a note about it from the first time that it was like the first time that we see Renfus when Everlane and Renfus are like talking about him, and then this too, and then there's something else later that like I feel like by the end of this section I'm like, okay, so
They have to be.
that has to be true, right?
Yeah.
But I did feel like Malway was just being a real G and making some shit up to cover for Kingfisher in this moment.
Yes.
That was my initial vibe. Although if they call her the Oracle and I don't know. That's a good question. Does she just make everything up?
I mean, but even it said like her eyes glassed over, went white or whatever. So maybe she just has this power and decided, okay, I'll use the power now, and it doesn't just like randomly come to her whenever I don't know.
That's so Malway.
So Malway, classic Malway. But while she's doing her thing, she says, "The sword calls to me. I feel it. Like the last vestiges of a weapon's power echo with prophecy. I'm half deaf with the blasted thing ringing in my ears." And so I was like, Ceres is a prophecy? Or at least the sword is some sort of prophecy? Is this that trope? She the chosen one?
I was wondering this, but I also was thinking about how Ceres hears like voices and stuff from metal or specific. I don't know if it's specific objects, but like when Malway says, "I'm half deaf with the blasted thing ringing in my ears," I didn't know if that was like a similar voice type of situation that like Ceres hears, or if it's just,
or she was seeing Ceres's future, and so she was like seeing from Ceres's point of view that it's
maybe
like calling to her like that loudly kind of a thing. Hello, Ceres.
Malway, is Ceres there?
But like whenever she does see the sword for the first time, she is like weirdly drawn to it and wants to like look at it and whatever. So man, okay. And then we like finally leave the court and we just kind of get like this whole info dump, like world building info dump from Everlane. And one of the things she says is that they've been at war with Senisroth for longer than I've been alive. So part of me felt like that was going to be a big point, but also if it's just for as long as she's been alive, maybe this is just like some backgroundy information, like, oh, this has been going on for forever, no big deal, like no worries, type of a thing. I don't know.
If she's Fae, she's probably been alive for a long time, so maybe that is a big deal.
Yeah, that's true. I don't know. But thinking about just like going to other worlds or other places and stuff like that. Obviously, this is on this world because it's on the map. Something's on the map. Oh my God. And then she says, "There are those among our ranks that might pretend to be your friend, but often they're hiding knives behind their smiles, ready to sink them into your back." And then Ceres says, "I couldn't help but wonder if she counted herself among that number." And my note here was like, well, great. I was really liking Everlane, and now I feel like I'm supposed to be skeptical of her. Dang it. I liked her.
I still like her.
I mean, I do too, but I feel like now I'm always going to be thinking like, oh, but is she going to like stab her in the back, or whatever, so.
Well, if they have knives behind their smiles, Ceres can just melt them. That's fine.
Oh, yeah. No big deal.
No big deal.
With the power, she totally knows how to control.
Totally.
Well, that brings us to Chapter 8, the final chapter of this episode, The Alchemist. I just had a gif of Nightmare Before Christmas just saying, Ceres pictured here, of Jack Skellington going, "What's this? What's this?" as she's introduced to night and snow, like everything.
That basically is what happens. She just stares at the window.
My only note from this chapter was Rusarius, who I love. He seems really funny. He says, "Oh, so this one's an alchemist then." And I wrote, "Oh, Fae and alchemy. I get it."
Looks back at the cover. Oh, yeah.
It doesn't say it on the cover.
I know.
My next note here, Fisher kind of sneaks in a little bit as they're chatting, but he makes a comment here about Ren still scrubbing his balls, and then that just like took me out. I thought that was so funny. I totally forgot that was in there. I didn't remember that line, so that was just like a fun surprise there. And so I'm looking to not the balls, him the line.
Always a fun surprise.
But I'm looking. It made me look forward to rereading the dynamic between those two. So
Interesting.
So he's in the book more. That's a spoiler.
And he has balls.
huge spoiler.
Huge.
He's Ren confirmed to have balls. The only one on the list.
How big? What?
Seriously? Okay. I'm starting over.
Amazing. That was wonderful. Then, so they're speculating this whole thing about the sword and how Ceres is able to do it. And I think this is Kingfisher who says it because it just has a deep voice murmured. But I think it says Kingfisher shows up and it says, "She must have a drop of Fae blood, enough to stop Solus from burning off her hands, but not enough to matter." And I think this is about Ceres like being able to hold the sword and how I guess she's not supposed to be able to do that. It's probably why it's been stuck in the ground for so long and how many humans had probably tried to pick it up and kind of a thing. But it does, I guess, confirm that she has some sort of fae blood, but not enough to matter. I feel like is far from the truth. I feel like it's going to end up being a big part of the story. But
also, if that sword was in the palace where Madra is, if Madra was fae, don't you think she would have been able to retrieve it herself?
I guess, but if somebody touched it, did that like open the portal or something?
Yeah, I guess maybe she would have left it there on purpose.
Or maybe it was like stuck in the ground, and when Saris did her alchemy or whatever, she like loosened it. You know what I'm saying? Like Sword of the Stone vibes.
Yeah. Just makes me think of like when you're like trying to open a pickle jar or something, and then somebody else finally gets it, and you're like, "Well, I loosened it."
It's exactly what happened.
That's what happened to King Arthur.
All those people before him loosened it. That's funny. But Saris is trying to get her point across about how important it is for her to go back home to like help her brother. And she says, "Do you have a brother, Everlane?" And Everlane says, She blinked rapidly, flustered. Her eyes darted to Kingfisher for some reason. And I was like, well, that confirms the brother-sister
For
theory.
some reason.
Yeah. For some reason, she'd look at this dude. I feel like that has to be confirmed. I mean, obviously it's not like said out loud, but I'm confirming that in my own heart.
Agree.
Okay, good.
Same.
Oh, and then they're talking about the pendant thing that Kingfisher has and clearly needed for some reason, but he gave it to Sarah to like help her heal, which is wild, first of all, that this little pendant, we didn't even talk about that, like healed her giant stabs in her whole body that should have killed her and all of that. But Everlane says to Kingfisher, you shouldn't have given her the pendant when you came through. And Kingfisher held up his left hand, which he'd clenched tight into a fist. I still had the ring. Sure enough, a plain silver ring flashed on his middle finger, catching at the light. Everlane shook her head, her eyes bright with unshed tears. It wasn't enough. You took more in, didn't you? What is this conversation about? What did he take in? And what is this like weird... I don't know, like he turned into a dog or whatever they called him.
That's
the dog.
what I was laughing about.
I was like,
Your comment about the dog
potion stuff. Like what is going on? I'm very confused as to whatever's happening. And then they were talking more about the pendant, and Saris says, I couldn't stop staring at the silver plate he wore around his neck. It was beautifully engraved with elaborate lines, but it was the snarling wolf head at the center that captured my attention. And my note here is he a werewolf? Because if he is, sign me up.
Did not occur to me.
I don't think it's going to end up being that, just like from where the vibes of the book are going and stuff. But I would be a big fan and would 100% approve. If that would be like why they call him a dog, like that happens for werewolves. Anyways, I just really like them.
Happens for them.
It happens for them. It's like really impressive. I love them.
Oh my gosh, that's funny. I feel like with the pendant and like the ring and stuff, I'm getting. It seems more like that stabilizes him. I don't know
From
if
turning
that
to a
means
werewolf.
Maybe. I don't know if that means like
She's on heavy werewolf watch now.
I really like
She's
that.
deep into it.
if we can have unicorns, we can
Why
have
not?
werewolves.
Why not?
Nothing is off the table at this point. We know nothing.
Give us a quick ranking of your mythological beast men, Lauren, because like I know you've said werewolves, you've said vampires before. I'm sure there's a few other ones on the list. Who's on top?
Oh,
like
vampires.
Literally and figuratively.
Well, vampires like to be honest. I'm just kidding. Vampires and then werewolves, I guess, or second.
Okay.
If I'm
What's
just
third?
like in that world. You know, like Edward and Jacob or whatever.
Make it a list. What's third? Don't just give us
know.
two. Come on.
No.
Ghosts.
Mermaids?
I have read a book about that.
I guess the
Mermaid.
Fae count.
Fae are after werewolves?
Yeah.
Wow.
Interesting. I could see that. Well, the Fae are just a little bit more boring than both vampires and werewolves, you know?
I think I just
Vampires
like,
and werewolves have that extra little edginess to them.
Yeah.
I think I just like I
Men, you
read
just like
Twilight.
Got it.
Yeah. I think it literally was just that I stayed with them as like the front runners for so long that it doesn't really matter what else I read. It's like if I know there's a vampire or werewolf or whatever, like I immediately read that book. It immediately becomes top of the list. That's why I got stuck with that one horrible vampire book I was reading for like 6 months because it said vampire on the
Nosferatu?
cover. No.
Anyway.
I started another series earlier this year, and Lauren was like, I cannot believe you started that series without me. And I was like, why? She's like, there's vampires in it.
I know. I'm still mad about it. I didn't even pick it up to read it with you. I haven't read it.
Yeah, why not? I
'Cause
finished
I'm
the whole
mad
thing.
I'm mad.
The last note for this whole chapter section is, I'm pretty sure the last note in this chapter section, or the last line, is Sarah answering like, oh, do you know your way around a forge? And she says, in a forge? Yeah, you could say I know my way around a forge. For some reason, it reminded me of a clip from one of Lauren and I's favorite movies with Paul Rudd. Just repeating the same line over and over, like, yeah, you could say that again. Tell me about it. But,
Yeah. And he tells him this whole long story.
Yep.
You could say that again.
You
Tell
came
me
in here and looked
about
like
it.
crap. Haven't said very much. Tell me about it. Like over and over again.
You could say that again. And it just keeps going.
That's gave me the same vibes there. Like, yeah, you could say I know my way around it. A forge? Yeah, you could say that.
All right, y'all. That is the end of our first chapter section of Quicksilver. So, taking it to the ladies here, what are your current character thoughts of who we have met thus far in our first chapter section?
I love him.
Love them.
I love him.
I love all of them.
In bold.
I do. It is. It's in bold, all caps. Saris seems like a bad bitch with really cool power potential. I'm very excited about that. Kingfisher is super intriguing to me, although we know pretty much nothing about him right now. I am looking forward to finding out why he's part of this like infamous book boyfriend Hall of Fame. Like that's really the only thing that I know. I'm loving the side characters. I feel like everyone has so much personality, which is super fun. There was the one sentence that made us question whether we can trust Everlane or not, but I like her anyway. I don't care. Renfus, I don't really have a read on yet, but he seems cool and super tall and hot, so that's great. I am obsessed with Carrion Swift. Lauren's like, yes. I am obsessed with Carrion Swift. He is the only reason that I'm really hoping we go back to Zilvarin in this book in particular.
So funny and random to me. I love this for you.
Thank you. Hayden has like a young, super dumb vibe, but he seems like he's really fun with Saris, so I could take it or leave it at this point, but I am worried that he's going to die at some point because he's so important to Saris. I don't think he's dead yet. I feel like the queen is too prideful to admit that she lost Saris and would want some kind of leverage against her whenever she returns. Speaking of the queen sucks. Rusarius is really funny and kind of reminds me of the stressed out librarian from Throne of Glass, but like more jolly. Do you know who I'm talking about?
Yeah.
I cannot remember his name for the life of me, but that's who he reminds me of.
Sure.
I think that's it.
All right, Lauren.
I hate the beginning of books because I just never know who I'm supposed to like and who I'm supposed to be skeptical of. And so that turns me to just skeptical of everyone so I don't get my feelings hurt later because I've been tricked before. And then it takes a lot to like break down your love for a character to build it for another. So instead I just try to stay neutral, I guess, until I
And then
know that
here's
I
me.
can like them. I know. And you're like, I love them and I love them. So right now I'm just like super neutral. I just feel like of everyone
Okay.
except for Renfus. Because his accent is super hot and all 7-foot tattooed section of him. I love every part of it with every fiber of my being. So big fan of him. But I cannot wait to see more from Saris and learn more about her powers specifically. And I just want her to become a total badass. I mean, she kind of already is, but like epic.
Yeah.
Fair enough. Moving right into thoughts and theories then. What is to come?
For thoughts, I just am loving this so far. This is super random, but I get so excited every time we get to the part of the chapter that says the chapter name. I feel like I don't read a lot of books that have named chapters, so it's kind of fun that it like comes back around.
That
in
was-
every chapter, and you're like, oh.
That was something Kyle, one of those like, can I tell you something about Quicksilver? It's not a spoiler. And I was like, no, for like weeks. And then finally it was just that the chapters have titles, like names.
Yeah.
Like, that was what he wanted to tell me.
I meant what I said. It's not a spoiler at all.
Oh, that's funny. I'm assuming Kingfisher and Everlane are siblings, even though they haven't explicitly said that yet. I do really want to know what this mysterious chain does and the ring that Kingfisher wears. I could see Everlane and Renfus being a thing. I'd ship that. I think the queen is abusing some sort of magic to stay young and control her guards, but I have no idea what that means or like how she would do that unless it's like if like the pendant that Kingfisher wears or like his ring, if that has something to do with like his magic, then maybe, I don't know, if objects can help control that. I don't know. Now I'm spitballing, but if objects could help maybe control like or contain magic or something like that. I don't know. I just feel like something's going on there with the way that she's like controlling guards and stuff. I do think that the queen will die, and I could see it happening in this book only because we were introduced to her so early, but alternatively, maybe she'll become like an even bigger monster that they continue to learn about and battle throughout the series. But like, honestly, the fact that things have changed so much already make me think that this book is going to be an absolutely wild ride. So I really don't have predictions other than that yet. I am just excited to keep reading.
Do we know how many books this series is? Because that will decide my map out of big bads compared to. Don't Google it, Connor. Let them Google it. John's on it.
Most of what I'm seeing is that it's supposed to be a trilogy.
Okay.
That's what, like a dozen?
Well, when you count the bonus chapters and the novellas. Somebody intro my thoughts and theories, please. Kyle.
I was going to once you stopped yapping. Am I right, guys? Just kidding. Now on to Lauren's thoughts and theories. Emphasis on thought.
Oh my god.
Kyle! Oh my god!
Shit! You get roasted.
Wow. It was the delay of sound from all of us as we registered what was said.
I know. I was like, man, maybe it didn't land. Go ahead.
Wow.
Oh, it landed.
You spoiled me.
Oh, it landed.
You just spoil me. Okay. I wouldn't be surprised if Kingfisher has to take down the Valiant King while Cerys is supposed to take down the Zelvaran Queen, and there's some sort of parallel to that, and they work together and do their thing because both of those monarchs kind of suck and should be taken down probably. I don't actually really know much about the king, but he kind of seems sucky.
Get him.
I kind of think we'll learn more about this war with Sansroth, but Everlane made it seem like background stuff, so maybe not. I don't really know. I think that Madra is Fae. I'm sticking with it. I could see Madra killing the entire third, but just saving her brother as leverage and still kind of half following through. So she's Cerys is going to hear somehow that the third actually is gone and then find out later her brother, but also maybe her brother is going to be one of the mind controlled people or whatever's going on with that and used against her later. Also, Heron, no body, no death. They said she won't let me go, so I kind of feel he's still alive maybe. And
Sure.
we'll see him later. I don't know. Kingfisher and Everlane are totally siblings, which also means that Kingfisher is the king's son, but maybe the mom cheated or something, and that's why the king doesn't like Kingfisher or is mean to him. And then my only real thought for this book is I sure hope the spice be spicing.
Ooh.
I don't really know
Me
much
too.
about it, but somebody said at the beginning that it was a really spicy book, in the content warnings. And I went, ooh, it's a spicy book. I know nothing about this book. So excited for that. Okay, that takes us to the cry counter. The cry counter is, where we count how many times we cried every episode. If we're counting in episode today, I totally cried. If we're just from laughter, this is a good one, guys.
Yes.
But when the reading, I did not cry. Anybody else?
Nope.
No.
We've yet to get the guys.
One legendary dragon egg for me.
Yeah. I guess we got the guys a little bit during Throne of Glass, but we didn't get them at all last season. So
Yeah.
I don't think it will happen only because they've already read it. But you never know.
I was going to say, and this is book one, but I also cried in book one of Fourth Wing, so.
You cried a lot. I cried a lot. It's book one of
Cried
Fourth
a
Wing.
lot. Cry every time.
I'm going to cry right now.
I honestly think I did get close to Third Glass. I actually
half
read
cry.
those. I actually physically looked at
In
them
print.
and read them. An audiobook, I feel it's going to be much harder for me to get there because, like I said, I audiobook at work.
But
I'm,
didn't
doing
you
other things.
Kindle Fourth Wing?
That's true. Never mind. There's nothing consistent in my life, and I am a fraud.
You spoil me.
Well, moving on down, we just want you to be our friend because golly gee and boy howdy, what an exciting first episode. I can't wait to have you all back for the next one. Next week, we're discussing chapters 9 to 15, so please do read along with us to be part of the journey. Before you go, please take a moment to rate the episode and leave a nice little review for us. We'd really appreciate it. You can follow us on Instagram and TikTok as well for more fun and exciting book content, updated podcast schedules, merch drops, and a lot more. But as a gentle reminder, do not send us any Quicksilver spoilers or memes on social media. Lauren and Con run the email and social accounts, and neither of them can monitor for spoilers right now. We do have a specific spoilerific chat in our Discord that you can go crazy town in, though. Jon and I will be in there taking all your theories, and we'll be poking fun at the girls when they're dead wrong. So
It's my first time not being in the
It's
spoiler
horrible.
chat.
It's horrible.
They're not allowed. But we can shout as much as we want in there. Otherwise, kindly wait till we finish the book before sending any Quicksilver content our way. If I catch you giving the girls spoilers, you're going in the red flag diary.
Oh,
Snap.
Oh, snap.
It's like an exclusive Patreon perk.
yeah.
Kyle will sit there on TikTok Live
there.
writing your name. In the red
Oh,
flag
thanks for your
diary.
It's our
donation.
$25 tier. That's the only perk.
All right, y'all, that's where we're leaving it for now. Saris has cracked open a new realm, bound herself to a glacial grump, and somehow still hasn't had a proper snack. If you're just as unwell as we are, you don't have to suffer alone. Head over to BetweenPagesAndFriends.com for unfiltered bonus content on Patreon, exclusive access to our Discord, the dopest merch, and all our unhinged thoughts, tracked like evidence across GoodReads and StoryGraph. We'll be back next episode with more Fae, more words, more... Till then, stay wordy, stay nerdy, don't stress, and stay blessed.
What? More what? More
That's
what?
right. Yeah, that's right.
I gotta go
Guess
read.
you have to find out.
I gotta go read.
I gotta go read.
There he goes.